Hey Mosaic Souls, welcome back to this channel. All the good things. Hopefully you are doing well. So today I wanted to talk about 7 lessons I've learned about leaving behind the music and performing arts and stuff like that, which is funny because I'm diving back into it. But now that I've returned to it and with a new set of fresh eyes, being spiritually awakened and stuff, I wanted to share sort of 7 lessons that I learned during my spiritual awakening around the performing arts and all that stuff. And the first thing, let's just dive right into this one, is I am not my art. I am not what I do. I am an infinite being who happens to enjoy pursuing the arts, but it's not who I am. So art is not what I am, it's what I do. And before my spiritual awakening, I was very much so attached to the label UPS truck, sorry. But before my spiritual awakening, I was very much so attached to the label of being an artist, right? And although I still love that label and playing with that label, it was very much so, I felt lost without that identity, really. And it's funny when I'm just sitting out here all silently, no one's passing by, but as soon as I turn on my camera, everybody wants to start passing by. Anyways, but so anyways, during the very beginning stages of the deeper spiritual awakening, because I feel like I've been on a spiritual awakening journey for almost damn near 15 years, but whatever. But before that, I really was attached to the label of being an artist, and I felt really lost if I wasn't doing art, and I felt like my purpose and my reason for existing on the planet was just very lost and incoherent and very, why am I here if I'm not here to create, And so when I would have the natural urge to go inward, or the natural urge to be at peace, or the natural urge to just be in silence and stillness and do nothing, I would make myself feel guilty at that time because I was so dead set on having that label of being an artist and doing art and it being my identity. I didn't give myself the grace to just allow my natural ebbs and flows in life, And so that's really the first lesson, is that I'm not just an artist. Art is what I do. It's what I love to play with and express myself with, but it's not who I am. I'm an infinite being who happens to express itself through art. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson that I learned was that I'm an infinite being with infinite potentials beyond just art, beyond just the talents of art. My talents, I have many talents in many different areas, right? So, coaching and all this other stuff that I do. But like being an infinite being and being a multi-dimensional being who has many talents. I'm sorry, there's a bug on my screen. I have many talents in many different areas. So I don't no longer identifying or like saying, grasping onto the label like this is all I do or can do or whatever. What I realized is that it was limiting my soul's expression of wanting to tap into other things, right? So being an artist all my life, really growing up, going to performing arts school, going to school for music and all that stuff, like art was the only thing that I was focused on, right? And so even if my soul wanted to explore other things, I wouldn't even give it the time of day because I was like, no, I'm an artist, right? And so I would limit myself because of that label, right? But having the spiritual awakening and walking away from music and the performing arts and now coming back into it, I'm recognizing that it's one of the many playgrounds that I'm here to play on, And, if you're a Mosaic soul like me, which you most likely are if you're watching this video, I think most people on the planet are Mosaic souls, we just don't know it. But, your soul is here to explore many different things, and to give it the grace and the spaciousness to do so is a beautiful thing. So that's the second lesson that I learned. So the third lesson that I learned is that the performing and fine arts brings a level of depth and dimension to life on planet Earth that I didn't realize that I missed. So when I walked away from it, I was just sort of in the throes of being in a spiritual awakening, which incorporated a lot of stillness, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of recognition and of who I am, and falling away of a lot of old paradigm beliefs, and that still continues to this day, honestly. But it was really deep at that point But after sort of reintegrating this newfound awareness into sort of my day-to-day human life, I started to miss the arts and recognize that the performing and the fine arts is really a beautiful healing modality. Not only is it a healing modality and a healing form of, expression on the planet, but it's also, it brings this level of depth and dimension to life, like a vertical dimension that expands, can be used to like express what we call God, the God within us, in a deeper and more fulfilling way than any other sort of form on the planet, right? Like, yeah, you can express through science, you can express through, books, and books is a form of art too, but like, you can express through many different ways, surgery and sports and stuff, but the arts just bring a dimension and level of fulfillment that I really missed and enjoy, and I'm excited and glad that I am a part of this whole artistic movement, So the fourth lesson that I learned is that it feels way better to be a creative than not to be a creative. And when I talk about being creative, I mean an individual that creates something from nothing. And the reason why, I just feel like we are naturally creatives, right? Like if you're a fractal of source, and source is all that is and has created all there is, that we're naturally creative beings. And so when we sort of limit our potential or limit our creativity, we can sort of feel deadened inside and feel sort of like we are not connected to that which we are, which is naturally creative. We are a part of source. We are fractals of source, right? Fractals of God, whatever you want to call it, right? So to me, having now re-entering the arts, and I'm already in it, so I don't know, keep saying it. Now being in the arts and being creative and expressing myself in that way, it feels so juicy, and it feels enlivening, and it feels satisfying, and it feels fun and thrilling and exciting, And I much rather to be a creative than not to be a creative, because I feel like it's a natural flow of my expression, divine self-expression. And so that's really the other, lesson that I really learned about really just kind of walking away from the arts and now being back in it fully. Another lesson that I have learned and am still integrating, to be honest, is I can enjoy the process of creating and sharing my creations even if no one sees my creation. So I don't have to get caught up in the metrics of who's seen it and who's bought it and who wants it and who doesn't. Like, just creating and being and sharing, and that of itself is more than enough, and I can leave it up to the divine to bring whoever it wants to see my creations. Or if I feel excited about marketing, I can market my creations. Like, it really doesn't matter. But the act of being creative in that itself, the creative act in that of itself, and the actual creation is complete in that of itself, And in this world that is always like encouraging us to produce, or always trying to get more and more, put more out there, get more people to see it and get more likes. And your life doesn't have purpose or meaning if you don't have 1,000 likes and 1,000 plus people haven't seen your stuff, and you're worthless and meaningless and all this other stuff. And even though I've had those metrics, in other ways in fashion, it doesn't mean anything really, like getting clients or people purchasing it and people healing from it, it's beautiful. But I don't need me as an individual fractal, I don't need to bog down my mind with that, especially when I'm in the creative process. I can focus on just being creative and allowing the creative flow to happen, and letting my own natural intuitive faculties to guide me on what next to do, whether that is to share it, whether that creation was just for me, for my own healing and enjoyment, pleasure, or whether I'm meant to share it, and whether I'm meant to put it out into the world in a bigger way. Like, I'll know in the moment, because that's sort of like an aspect of living in the freedom paradigm, an aspect of living spiritually awakened and being intuitive, is that you just kind of follow your intuitive nudges. You follow the intuitive impulses, the creative, the fun nudges. You'll kind of know what to do next, And so that was sort of like the fifth lesson I learned, is that I can be creative and not get so caught up in the metrics and all this other stuff, right? because a lot of that comes from fear. Really, it comes from this fearful place that, oh, if I don't do this, or if this many people don't see it, or if this person doesn't buy it, and stuff, then my well-being isn't assured and my bills won't get paid, or I will lose this. And then we create this whole narrative around being creative and limiting our own potential, and limiting really the potential of the universe to match our natural flow of abundance, And so that's something I'm still integrating in my life, but it's definitely a huge lesson that my higher self and divine team has been on me for a while about, and just enjoying just to create, and to enjoy that process, and that it's okay to just do that, and there's nothing wrong with just allowing that flow of an ebb and flow of energy to flow, So that's sort of the fifth lesson that I learned. And piggybacking off of the fifth lesson is this lesson, which is my job is just to create, right? As a creative, when I'm in the creative flow, when the creativity arises, my job is just to create and allow that flow of passion and excitement and creative, flow to happen, and leave the rest up to my higher self, right? Like, I don't need to pre-plan anything. I don't have to plan anything. I don't have to say, okay, on Wednesday, I'm releasing this and this. If it feels fun to do that, I can do that, right? But if I don't do that, then that's also totally fine, Like, one of the things about being awakened, in my personal, freedom paradigm that my divine team has been guiding me on, is that your well-being isn't really tied to what you do, It's not at all. It's really tied to what you believe, your belief system, and how you operate in the world. And when I talk about well-being, I mean all facets of abundance, right? Not just financial abundance, but also like physical health, living and all that other stuff. Like, it's all tied into that, So when you know who you are and you're in the creative flow, you can just move from the creative flow and allow it to ebb and flow naturally, right? Like, maybe you find that you're creative for 2 weeks straight, and then for the next 2 or 3 months, you don't feel like doing nothing, and that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? In the eyes of the world, there's this judgment around that, right? Because in the eyes of the world teaches you to look outside of yourself for love, to look outside of yourself for abundance, to look outside of yourself for fulfillment and joy and all this other stuff, right? But when you're awakened, and you know that all that stuff is within you, you can move freely in your creativity in whatever way it naturally arises, I felt like painting today, and I feel like painting for the next 3 months, and then all of a sudden I don't pick up a paint brush for the next 6 months, and that's totally fine. Like, my higher self isn't beating me over the head about that, right? Like, I'm not gonna get some gold medal. Sorry, these flies. I'm not gonna get some gold medal for being more creative or not being creative, So it's interesting. That's huge lesson, is learning to be, okay, I'm about to go into the sunlight because these flies are like, hold on. Learning to be more creative allows you, learning to go with the natural ebbs and flows of life allows you to just flow naturally and not really be in this state of fear and state of scarcity and state of not living in your truth, right? Because you're scared that your well-being won't be supported, right? So it's like you can let go of a lot of that and just move effortlessly into all that you truly are without needing to be someone other than who you already are in the moment, And so that's sort of the freedom that comes with living a spiritually awakened life, in a sense, that I'm beginning to embody more and more and more. So the last 2 to 3 lessons is definitely, I'm like in the thick of really learning them. Like, the first 4 lessons I really get already, but the last 3 are like I'm in the process of really integrating into my life in a deeper and more fulfilling way. So that is the 6th lesson that I've learned so far. And to further the point of what I was just sharing, I feel like the 7th lesson is that I don't have to be on the creativity hamster wheel, right? Like, if I'm not creating, that it doesn't mean anything, Like, there's gestation, there's incubation, and then there's creation, right? Like, if you think about a woman giving birth or just nature in general, there's always there's different seasons, right? There's this incubation, there's this planting of the seeds, this, gestation, this sprouting of the seeds, and the the fruit bearing, and the harvest and all that stuff. There's all these different seasons, and if we can just tune into that which we are, we can naturally see that we also have that our own ebbs and flows with that, especially when it comes to being a creative. And part of that is knowing that you don't have to be on the creativity hamster wheel all the time, and to honor these natural ebbs and flows in your life, right? And to honor that when you feel the urge and desire to create, and to follow that fun process, and then when you don't, then to honor that and for it to be okay. And I remember really, really, really struggling with this in my late teens and early 20s, because I was on the hamster wheel and trying to make it and all this other stuff. And even though I enjoy sharing that, and my intention is to impact the world in a better place, I'm doing it from a place of just awareness that I'm already divine, and whoever's supposed to resonate with this message is going to resonate with it, and whoever ain't, So it's not my job to really try to force anyone to resonate with it, I think a part of that is just understanding that we're divine beings having this human experience, and part of our human experience on this planet Earth is going with the natural cycles of the planet. Gaia has her own intelligence, right? And nature has her own intelligence. Why don't we think that we also have our own natural intelligence? A lot of times we're so disconnected from nature. We're so disconnected from our own true nature, not just, physical nature, trees and birds and stuff, but we're disconnected from our own inner cycle of flow and ebbs and flows and intuition, that we don't allow the divine beings that we truly are to actually flow. And so the seventh lesson that I really learned is that there's no need to be on a creativity hamster wheel. And if I don't feel the desire to create, then that's okay. And I don't need to compare myself. And that's a big part of why a lot of times I kind of stay away from social media. And a lot of times, there'll be ebbs and flows, where same thing with social media. Sometimes weeks or months on end where I don't really want to be on social media, and so I'm not posting nothing. And then other times where I feel like engaging and seeing what my friends or associates are up to, or seeing what's going on in the world, and I'll check social media because it feels fun. And then other times where it's it's too much noise, it's too busy, I don't want to be in that, it's ugh, So I can honor these natural ebbs and flows and not feel any guilt around that, you know what I mean? So that's sort of the 7 lessons that I've learned about, walking away from the performing and fine arts and coming back into it now, being into it. So yeah, I'd really love to know, share with me in the comments below any lessons that you've learned, if you've had a similar journey where you sort of left the arts or left the creative arts and maybe had a spiritual awakening journey, or anything you've learned on your spiritual journey in regards to the arts. And if you resonate with any of the lessons that I've learned, let me know in the comments below which ones you resonated most with. I'd love to know. And yeah, those are the 7 lessons that I've learned in regards to being creative, walking away from my creativity. In all honesty, I never really walked away from my creativity. I was still creating even during my spiritual awakening, but it wasn't at the height from before. But yeah, I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You are a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore and experience. And so vibrate higher, and I'll talk with you later. Peace, love, and light.